Hey, what up, family, friends, and movie lovers? Jeffrey Michael here, and welcome to a space exploratory edition of Jeffrey Michael's Movie Reviews Extravaganza. In this video, I'll be reviewing the movies that were released on October the 12th, 2018. Okay, the first movie that I'll review for you is First Man, rated PG-13. It stars Ryan Gosling and Claire Foy, and was directed by the great newcomer director Damien Chazelle, who brought you the Academy Award-winning films Whiplash and La La Land. I like that one. So First Man is based on the biography First Man, The Life of Neil A. Armstrong by James R. Hansen. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Haven't we seen the Apollo moon missions covered in film enough already? I mean, after The Right Stuff and Apollo 13, you'd think that there'd be nothing else left to tell. Turns out, maybe not. Maybe there is. And first of all, the movie covers Neil Armstrong's time at NASA from 1961 when he started off as a test pilot to 1969 when the Apollo 11 moon mission happened and the aftermath from that. Now, the movie takes a different direction with the traditional biopic. Damien Chazelle goes for a more intimate look into that story of Neil Armstrong. Now, because usually with the biopic, they go for the grandeur, the operatic, where they see it from many different views, like what we, the people at the time, were seeing of these moon missions that happened. But what Damien Chazelle goes for is, what I said, is an intimate portrayal where the camera is always there on Neil or his family. Neil Armstrong, played wonderfully, by the way, by Ryan Gosling. And there's also his wife, Janet, played superbly by Claire Foy. Oh my God, she does a good job. More on that later. And their family life and what it costs on their family. And then there's the actual rocket launches, which in this movie, oh my God, most of the time when these launches happen in the movie, the camera is right there inside the cockpit with Neil Armstrong or his other fellow astronauts. And we see exactly what they were experiencing when those moon rocket launches happened. I mean, oh my gosh, it's really scary, because they hear 3, 2, 1, and we have liftoff, and then boom, it's like an earthquake happens, and like a volcanic explosion at the same time. It's and they're going up, and they're, are we gonna make it? Because back in that time, those were all experimental rocket launches. You had no idea if they were gonna, be a success or they're gonna be a catastrophic failure resulting in your death. I mean, now in modern times, we know that most of these missions go off, perfectly without a hitch. But at the time, they had no idea if they were, going to go off to their certain death when they're going on these missions. They were scared, shitless, if you will. Pardon my French. And that's what I love about this movie. I like the whole movie, like the camera is right there next to Neil most of the time, or it's very intimate, where it's like next to the astronauts. It's not showing. It's very few times when they're actually showing what the people on TV at home are watching, or like the outside world. It's mostly what's happening at NASA, what's the Neil Armstrong family, and all the turmoil they go through. And you learn a lot about Neil Armstrong in this movie that even I didn't know. Like back when, Neil Armstrong had a daughter, a 2-year-old daughter who had a brain tumor and died. And he lived with that sorrow and that grief for the rest of his life. And wow, he had no idea. And also what his wife Janet went through with their 2, sons that were alive. And how whenever he was going off these missions, he would just leave. And she's like, "What are you doing? Do you realize you might not come back? Do you realize that your sons might not have a dad? I might not have a husband? You've got to sit down and you've got to tell your sons face to face that you might not be coming back. Do you hear me?" That's one of the many great scenes where Claire Foy shows off her wonderful acting chops as Janet, and she's right too. I mean, they had no idea if they were going to go off to a successful, moon mission or if they were not going to come back. So you've got to have those talks with your family. And it's really sad moments when he has to, explain to them, "I might not come back, boys. No." But overall, yeah, this was a wonderful, intimate, well-acted film that tells another different side of the moon missions rather than the grandeur, wonderful missions that we all know now, throughout history in the modern age, but rather than intimate portrayal, which shows like maybe a home movie version where the camera is following them everywhere and you feel like you're there with them. And even that when they get to that final climax at the end of the film, when they make that, now infamous first moon landing, The camera stays with Neil as he's gazing out among the stars and sees the Earth and sees the sun, and you're just like with there, feel like you're right where they're with him back in 1969 on the moon. It's just wonderfully shot, the whole movie. Great cinematography too, and deft direction by Damien Chazelle, who is a promising new director. I mean, this really overall, just the major theme here is that, in order to take risks, humanity wants to achieve greatness. They got to take those great risks. But at the same time, we see the cost of those risks, like what happens to the family. Like there's the moments where the astronauts don't make it in some of these missions and the rocket blows up. And so, you got to take the risks to achieve greatness, but it also, involves suffering of the down to the family level. And yeah, the movie pulls it off just wonderfully. And overall, my grade for this movie, ladies and germs, I give it a B+. Yep, it's a near perfect portrayal once again of Neil Armstrong in the Apollo moon missions. And would I recommend that you guys see it? Definitely, yes. If you want to see a well-acted, beautiful cinematography, deft direction, intimate portrayal of Neil Armstrong, his family, and the NASA moon missions, then definitely go and see this movie. I mean, get right to your theater and get ready to take off. 3, 2, 1. Moving on. So the next film that I'll review for you is Bad Times at the El Royale, rated R. It stars Jeff Bridges, Cynthia Erivo, John Hamm, Dakota Johnson, Lewis Pullman, and Chris Hemsworth. And was directed by Drew Goddard, who brought you the horror comedy film The Cabin in the Woods. Now, Bad Times at the El Royale tries to resuscitate a long since considered dead film genre, the neo-noir, which is basically a modern rendition of film noir. We all know what film noir is by now. It's very hard to pull off and can easily go campy if you're not careful. But I thought the Bad Times at the El Royale did a great job trying to bring back that genre, the neo-noir. More on that in a bit, though. So Bad Times at the El Royale opens up in 1959. We see a man whose face is covered. He goes into a motel room. He pries up the floorboards. He puts a duffel bag inside and then puts the floorboards back and puts the room exactly the way it was and goes to leave that room and bang, is shot dead. Ooh. So 10 years go by. It's now the year 1969, and the title establishment, the El Royale, is introduced. It's a motel that's situated exactly on the borders of California and Nevada. So when you enter, the hotel is divided into two. So if you want to stay on the California side of the hotel, you can enjoy sunny weather and California, with movie star pictures all over the walls. Or if you want to stay on the Nevada side, there's slot machines and gambling is legal there, so you can be more sinful. And on this particular day, the motel has been on some hard times in the last year. And there's only one employee, behind the counter, Miles, played by Lewis Pullman. And he's also the bellboy, the bellhop. And so on this one day, he's all of a sudden gets a lot of customers. There's Father Daniel Flynn, played by a priest, played by Jeff Bridges. And then there's the aspiring singer, Darlene, played by Cynthia Erivo. And then there's the salesman, Sullivan, played by John Hamm, who introduces the former two to the hotel. This is the El Royale. I've been coming here for years, staying in the honeymoon suite, says in his salesman pitch. And also another guest comes in, a hippie, Emily, played by Dakota Johnson. We find out later that she's trying to save her sister Rose from a cult. And so anyway, everyone comes into the hotel, they sign their names in, and Emily's, a bit of a hippie and kind of a don't care kind of attitude. She writes F-U for her name on the... And so they all go to their respective rooms, and, throughout the movie, then we start to get into the plot. Unfortunately, I can't reveal too much more because that would be spoilers. Let's just say the plot involves some stolen money from years ago, some hidden identities, and at one point a cult is involved. And there's also, let's say that hotel is not all that it seems, or motel rather, that there might be some dark hallways behind the rooms with some two-way mirrors peering into them. Yikes. I wouldn't want to be a guest there. Overall, this is basically a thriller or a mystery thriller, rather. I mean, if I could describe this movie, I would say it's part Agatha Christie crime novel in which that there's hidden mystery and there's a lot of characters with dual identities and it's one of those whodunit, what's going on kind of thrillers. And it's also part Quentin Tarantino film in that there's a wicked cool dialogue and a lot of bloody gut violence, and it's scenes are drawn out, it's slow paced, and that's actually one of the quibbles I have with this movie is that this each scene is like 5 or 10 minutes long. I mean, it really draws it out, and everyone talks slowly. So these long drawn out scenes and slow pacing lead to a 2 hour and 20 minute runtime, and for most people like myself. The slow pacing and the long runtime are kind of detrimental, I thought, to the story. But overall, though, this is a great excuse, a vehicle for the actors to just let loose. You got Jeff Bridges, who is just great as Father Flynn. Who at one point he's like, "I may not be a priest." Yeah, no crap. I can't say what she said. Darlene. I have to say, Cynthia Erivo is probably the MVP of this whole movie because she is a newcomer. And at times during the movie, she sings a lot of songs because she's an aspiring singer, and she gives Broadway level performances. Like, wow, she can sing. Girl can sing, girl. And she also goes great head to toe with veterans like Jeff Bridges and John Hamm. Like, she holds her own. So she's got a great promise, and she's got a new film coming out next month. But anyway, and then there's also at one point Chris Hemsworth shows up as a charismatic but deadly cult leader, Billy Lee. And also throughout the movie, like he almost always, either he's not wearing a shirt or he has a button-up shirt that's unbuttoned. So he's pretty much shirtless throughout the whole movie. And there's a point, it's funny because, there's scenes where he's threatening the other characters, but because he's all walking out in the rain, all, soaking wet and he has his shirt open, it's like he's being threatening and, there's like a lot, you're supposed to be scared, but it's like, oh, what great abs you have, Mr. Hemsworth. It's kind of distracting when you have that great body and you're trying to be threatening in this scene. It's like, so yeah, I don't know if I would have gone with that, but but I'm not complaining. I'm sure you won't either if you're a Chris Hemsworth fan. But he does a great job too as like I said, he's very charismatic and evil and, trying to get, Emily, like I said, is trying to get Rose, her sister, out of that horrible cult. At one point, all the characters, intervene to the climax and let's say, involves fire and, violence and blood and guts and not everyone comes out alive. And I'll leave it at that. And for my grade overall, for great acting and great cinematography and great direction, and even though it's been slow-paced and long runtime, I still give it a B, a nice solid B. It's a good time, and I thought it was a great version of a neo-noir, and there's some good talent involved here, directing and acting-wise, and would I recommend you guys see this movie? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like I said, it's a great thriller, and it's a little long, but still great acting and great twists and soaking wet, shirtless Chris Hemsworth. So where can you go wrong with that? I mean, overall, if you go to see this movie, I guarantee you won't have a bad time at the El Royale. Moving on, then. All right, so the last film from October the 12th that I'll review for you is Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween, rated PG. It stars Wendy McLendon-Covey, Ken Jeong, and Jack Black, and was directed by Ari Sandel, who brought you the teen comedy film The Duff. Now, Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween is a sequel to the 2015 film Goosebumps. And both films were in turn based on the children's horror book series by R.L. Stine. Can I just start off by saying that as a kid who grew up in the early 90s, I loved the Goosebumps books. In fact, I think I actually learned to read reading Goosebumps. I mean, back in elementary school in the early 90s, you could not find a kid who wasn't reading one during like lunch hour or after school. I mean, for little kids, it was a perfect introduction to horror genre in general. And afterwards, it was turned into a short-lived TV series called Goosebumps, in which each episode was based on one of the books. And for the most part, I thought that TV show was a great adaptation of the books. It was perfect horror and a lot of great, spooky moments that, gave you chills. I thought it did a good job adapting the books. And then came the Hollywood movies. First came 2015 film Goosebumps, which I already mentioned, and I thought it was just a disaster. I mean, the thing about the Goosebumps books is they're very much horror with maybe a little comedy. But these films, they're just straight up comedy films with some horror elements, and it's not scary at all. They're just disaster. I mean, the critics were kind to it, but not me. I gave the first film a C plus when it came out, and the reason why I gave it a C plus and not a lower grade because the highlight of the film was Jack Black playing a fictionalized version of R.L. Stine. You know, the reclusive author who's like, "You can't stay away from my books," and he's all over the top, kind of hammy acting. I thought it was a great, element to the film of otherwise, lame, boring comedy kids film. And then came the sequel, and you're hoping with the sequel maybe they'll actually get it right this time. But I didn't have any expectations weren't high, and good thing too because it's no good. So the sequel, the first film took place in Madison, Delaware, and the sequel takes place in a small town in New York. And our main characters this time are a teenage girl named Sarah. There's her younger brother Sonny and his best friend Sam, and then there's their mother, played by Wendy McLeod-Covey. And so the younger boys, Sonny and Sam, after school, they like to go collect valuables in abandoned homes and try and sell them. So one day they're going to this abandoned home and they're trying to collect stuff in their little red wagon. Why these grown boys have a red wagon, I have no idea. And so at one point they go to the fireplace and the accidentally pulls a lever which opens up a secret passageway behind the fireplace. And instead they find an old trunk that's locked inside a book, an original manuscript from R.L. Stine, his very first book that was never published called Haunted Halloween. And then they take a key and they open up the book and they find nothing inside. It's blank. So no sooner do they open up that book when all of a sudden next to them appears a ventriloquist dummy appears. For fans of the Goosebumps books, you know that ventriloquist dummy is Slappy, probably the most famous villain in all of the Goosebumps series. And so it doesn't take long for them to realize that Slappy is a dummy that's come to life when they read a secret incantation inside his pocket. Hey guys, I'm back! Because Slappy was the main villain in the first film, and now of course he's back again as the main villain, and he is about to wreak vengeance and menace once again. I want you all to be my family. No, we don't want to be family with a demon-possessed ventriloquist dummy. Have it your way. And so this dummy really wants to make them all part of his family. And so what he does, he uses his magic to bring all the Halloween decorations all over town to life and terrorize all the citizens of this town in New York. And it's up to these boys and their sister, and at one point, toward the end, R.L. Stine, played once again by Jack Black, shows up, and they have to work together to save the day and stop Slappy and his evil minions, Halloween minions, once and for all. Now, to be honest, this all sounds a lot more fun than it actually is. I mean, once again, it's pure, lame comedy that I guess the littlest of kids will enjoy this movie, but if you're over the age of 10, then you will have a hard time, getting through this movie. I know I did. I mean, basically you have, one fault I have right away is that the adult actors, like Wendy McLeod-Covey plays the mother, and she has, next to nothing to do, and she's a great comedy actress, use her. And Ken Jeong shows up as Mr. Chu, their neighbor. You know that one neighbor who always over-decorates during the holidays, and it's an entire, Halloween, smorgasbord of decorations. I mean, the character is eccentric, and he's a Goosebumps fan, and so you wonder, why did they use him? He has maybe 3 or 4 scenes total and does nothing. It's use him, movie! And even worse, probably the biggest sin of all, is Jack Black was busy making a house with a clock in its walls at the time, and he only was able to film an extended cameo in this movie, so he barely shows up. And he was one of the best parts of the first movie, so why would you take one of your best parts and not use him? It's they pretty much leave the whole movie to these lame kid actors who are terrible at acting, by the way. Or maybe it's just bad direction. I have no idea, because it's probably both, really. And there's, once again, lame comedy moments, and there's bad dialogue. Oh my gosh. I don't think real humans actually speak this kind of dialogue, but in this movie, apparently they do, and it's just really bad. And the special effects, again, are crap. I mean, they don't even try with the computer effects. They're just, you can tell don't belong in this dimension. And once again, no horror elements. It's not scary at all. It's not that entertaining unless you're a little kid again. This movie is kind of the equivalent of, when you go trick-or-treating for Halloween and, you get some candies, you're like, oh, I don't like these candies, and you just pass them off to your sibling. That's pretty much what this movie is the equivalent of. That candy that you don't want, so you just hand it off to your little, sibling that probably will enjoy it. I mean, also, this is the kind of movie that if you're at a kid's birthday party and they put on a movie and nobody's watching it because they're having too much fun with the party, that's pretty much this movie. It's playing on the background. No one wants to watch it because it's not fun. I don't know. I mean, as someone who grew up with the Goosebumps books, when they were making these movies, I was expecting, pure horror movies with some comedy elements, but, it actually scares you. Like, but these movies are just strictly for little kids and no one else. For my grade, I give this one a C minus. I mean, this time there was barely any Jack Black, so there's no elevated grade here. And it's just below average because, like I said, you have to be a little kid to enjoy this movie, and I'm not a little kid anymore, and this movie does not capture the spirits of the books at all. Even if it does have the endorsement of the real life R.L. Stine. Sorry, R.L. Stine, this is not your books and you know it, so don't bother trying to pretend otherwise. Would I recommend you guys go see it? If you have a family and your little kids want to see it, and do it for them, just for them, because you're not going to enjoy it. But if your kids really want to do it, then sure. But everybody else, no, 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 no. For Halloween, see the new Halloween movie starring Michael Myers with Jamie Lee Curtis. That's a much better option for Halloween. So basically, overall, bad movies based on the Goosebumps books, and I hope that they reboot it, in the future, that actually gets the spirit of the books right. Until then, if they make any more of these Goosebumps movies, I'm not going to enjoy them at all. So stay at home or go and see the R-rated Halloween movie, but just stay away from this one, guys. Even the little kids might not enjoy it all that much, even though they might. I've spoken too much. Come on, let's move on. Houston, we have a problem. We've reached the recap. Recap. First Man, B+, a wonderful intimate portrayal of the NASA moon missions of the 60s, and also an intimate portrayal of Neil Armstrong as an astronaut and of his family life. If you want to see a well-done film with great acting and directing, then you should all definitely go and see this film. Bad Times at the El Royale, B. Despite slow pacing and a long runtime, it's an excellent adaptation of a neo-noir, with great acting, a suspenseful mystery, and a soaking wet, shirtless Chris Hemsworth. If you want to see all that, then you should absolutely see this movie. And finally, Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween, C-, a lame Halloween comedy film with very few horror elements, with lame acting, lame dialogue, and just a lame adaptation of the Goosebumps books. Unless you're the littlest of kids, do not go and see this movie. I saw it so you don't have to. You're welcome. And that'll do it for a space exploratory edition of Jeffrey Michaels Movie Reviews Extravaganza. Until next time, happy movie watching, everybody. See you all real soon.